All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. This is just a general Bible study or fellowship discussion. So I don't think we're going to go too long here, especially considering I have a stream scheduled for tomorrow with Dr. Kip Davis at 4 o'clock. And I'm really looking forward to that discussion. So I don't want to spend too long on a stream tonight. But, I figured I had not much going on and I might not be alone in that regard. So I figured I'd start a stream, see if people want to come by, have some random biblical discussions or just general life discussions, and go from there. So hope everybody's doing well. Um, I've been hanging in there. I've been spending the last couple of days preparing for the discussion, and I definitely can say I've enjoyed some of the information. Hey, what's going on, Sherry? I've enjoyed some of the information that I've picked up from my preparation to talk to Dr. Kip Davis, and he's obviously got a lot to offer. So we're we're definitely gonna have a nice conversation, and I hope possibly we can have some more conversations with him in the future. Obviously, his time's um, more valuable and limited than my own, but if possible. But regardless, just having one opportunity to speak to him will be nice. And unfortunately, he's become an atheist. I'll let him speak for himself tomorrow, so I won't speculate too much. But from the shows that I've seen, that's pretty much the stance that I think he's at right now. So that's an unfortunate thing. But maybe God can, you know, reopen his heart, and a fratha or whatever, however Jesus said, be opened to the deaf man when he opened his ears. I know I pronounced the other word wrong, but be opened. As Jesus opened the deaf man's ears, maybe God can do that for him tomorrow. But I don't know. That's my ultimate goal and motivation. So I hope that's what occurs. But obviously, you know, we all have our own journeys, and it takes a lot for us all to do what's just and right and to follow God, myself included. And it's a lifelong journey, so you never get there really. You're always trying until you die, because none of us are going to be perfect on the day we die. So we all have to try and get there, but myself included. So, anyways, but I'll get into some scriptures in a second here. So I was looking at some stuff, like I said, in preparation, and few things that you always appreciate certain aspects of scripture when you revisit them, and sometimes things didn't jump out at you the first time or the second time or the third time, but the fourth time or any time after that, you kind of appreciate them, or you just learn something and you have a better understanding of the verses. So that's important to continue to grow and always try to improve your exegesis and your ability to not only understand the scriptures from what you're reading, but to then look for deeper meanings once you understand the basics. So uh, this will be, here we are. So the link's pinned if anyone would like to join. Again, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. If you're free, feel free to come by. I'd like to have at least a decent amount of people watching. He's put the link out on his social media, so I'm sure he'll bring more people than I even probably have over here. As and that's you never know. We could have some good crowd here. What's going on, Nancy? But yeah, I just don't want it to say zero on the people watching thing, which it never does. So that's not a concern. But the more the better, obviously. But so these are some things that I'm going to point out in Jeremiah that I didn't Yeah, feel free to hit the link, Nancy, if you want. I'd rather have you come up here than be up here by myself. Sherry, unfortunately, always has technical issues, so I'm still waiting on the day to get Sherry up here. But unfortunately, she's got some technical issue with StreamYard for some reason. But so feel free. But yeah, in the meantime, um, feel free to join whenever you want, though, guys. But in the meantime, I'll just show you guys something that I found interesting. Yeah, all you need is your cell phone, though, Sherry, or your iPad should work. So I don't get it because you told me you had like an Apple iPad or whatever, and that's definitely good enough. You know what I mean? That's more money than my laptop costs, so you should be able to come on. But there could be something in the settings, or I don't know. I'm not a tech person myself, so I can't really give you too much advice. But yeah, I hope one day we can get you on because you could just use your cell phone. If any smartphone would work. Oh, you never had an iPad? Well, I don't know what you told me you had then. Maybe I was thinking of Pam. I don't know. I don't know what you have, but if you have a cell phone, you can come on to StreamYard, Sherry. All you do is hit the link and talk. You can talk right on your cell phone, any smartphone. Sometimes I'm on my laptop. Sometimes I just join a stream on my cell phone. So it's up to you, though. I know people like to chill out and they don't always want to have to be doing work either. This is something where people want to enjoy it and then be entertained at times too. So yeah, if you ever want, just try your cell phone, Sherry. That's what I suggest because I know sometimes you have a lot to offer up here too. You can contribute to these topics. But anyways, this is no epiphany, but it is something that if you're unfamiliar with the concept when you read your Bible, you probably haven't paid enough attention to it in the past, and you probably haven't realized what's actually being said here. But even though the text kind of explains it. Hey Nancy, but right here in Jeremiah, these phrases, every high hill and under every green tree, these are talking about idolatry practices. And you can kind of see it easily when you know it's there, when you know that's what it's referring to. But if you're not aware of it, you can overlook it and you can just read it and not really process that these are actually, idolatry practices. So I wanted to point that out because I didn't know it for a long time. And when I did figure it out, I was like, oh, wow. I didn't learn it till I did my presentations on the Kings, and I can't tell you the specific, uh, uh, idols that it refers to. I know one of them's Ashram, but because the Ashram trees and poles, and but
Um,
all the
bas-
idols,
Basically, it also refers back to pagan customs such as Semiramis and Christmas, and they had their groves and the trees, and they had all the ornaments on the trees, which were actually shrunken heads of children and a bunch of different things. I mean, there's a whole lot of paganism that goes back there, and that's why a lot of people are very opposed to Christmas and Easter as well. It goes back to Ishtar
yeah,
and all these things that were basically, around the spring vernal equinox or the, uh, it's not the winter solstice, and that's December 25th is a day that was chosen for Semiramis. And they
yeah.
brought,
I don't know too much about the Christmas thing. I know it's not Jesus' birthday. I know that much, but I don't know. The pagan aspects.
well, it really wasn't Christmas in the world. I mean, as we celebrate it right now until sometime, probably around the 1800s or something like that. And then they introduced a custom in Europe called Krampus, which is such an evil, oh God, hideous thing. I mean, it's so evil, it's ridiculous. But that's their type of a Christmas too. And but yeah, Christmas is a relatively new custom that wasn't even, around until maybe the 1800s, and it came into the United States, and now it's a commercial holiday for all people. It's like, oh, we're just going to have a blast here. maybe except for Muslims or Hindus or something like that. But
Yeah,
I,
it is kind of bizarre how far some of these practices have gone, and now we've kind of made them holidays or normalized them. When you look back at the origins of them, it is disturbing. But yeah, just so I can make this point to the people, just so you guys know, be aware of this when you read your Bible. If you see the phrases on every high hill and under every green tree, these are just talking about idolatry. And again, I didn't know it for a long time, but I just wanted to point that out to people. So hopefully, a couple people that don't know, these things may have learned something from just me pointing that out. It'll seem obvious to you now, especially when you read, the verses that you see those phrases in, because it'll kind of make sense more. But if you didn't know, you might have just thought it was harmless, but it's not. And this is a good verse too, also in Jeremiah 4:18 on a related topic. But where does evil come from? As the other show I did the other day about evil originating from our free will. I wish I had shown this verse the other day, because this is perfect verse to show that evil comes from free will. So Jeremiah 4:18 is a good one here. So your ways and your deeds have brought this upon you. This is your doom, and it is bitter. It has reached your very heart. And that speaks to what I was saying about free will being the origin of what what we experience as evils. But I have another one here that's related to that too. Just a few things that I picked up when I was reading today, guys. This isn't anything amazing here or anything, but a few interesting things I saw that I'm just pointing out to show you guys, because I thought they were interesting. Where is it? Oh, it's Isaiah 53, I think. Okay, hold on. On this
when
similar subject. What was
when
it?
you get done, I'm a little bit behind. I don't know what you're talking about tomorrow.
Oh, it's just a random conversation. No real set topic. Just about why we should have faith in the Christian God or not. I mean, he used to be a Christian, and now he's an atheist, but he's also a biblical scholar, a Dead Sea Scrolls expert. So we're going to get into a lot of the Bible too. He's going to probably present a lot of information on why he's kind of got pushed towards his atheism from the scriptures, I'd assume. But
Okay.
that's gonna be basic premise of what we're gonna do. But there's
Well,
no set plan.
I remember now you talking about it. You were inviting this guy, and he was a scholar and an atheist. Okay, I remember.
Yeah, we're just gonna we just planned it as a conversation. It's not you know gonna be any debate or anything. It's just a conversation. Trying to find the verse. I didn't write it down, and I said in my house. I said in my mind like, "Oh, you'll remember this." You know what I mean? I said in my mind like, "Oh, you won't forget it." You know how you say, "Oh, I like that verse," and what's the number, and you're like, "I'll keep it in my head."
Hmm. Yeah, I have notes all over envelopes laying all over the place, and when I can't find something, I'm like going through envelopes looking for notes that I wrote something down on.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so bad at remembering verses when I'm like, "Oh, I like this verse," because I found a good verse that showed us basically this similar topic about free will causing evil, how like God didn't even intend for something to happen, but the idolatry of the people allowed it. Okay, here it is. Here it is. Right here, this is the verse. Okay, so I wasn't too far from it. I knew it was right around Isaiah 54. I thought I had it correct. I had 54:18, but it was 54:15. So I was close. But here it is. If anyone stirs up strife, it is not from me. Whoever stirs up strife with you shall fall because of you. So when you read this in the context, it's talking about, hey, Eric, feel free to join if you want. This is just general conversation. No, whatever topic you want to bring up, feel free. I'm just showing a couple things I thought were pretty interesting today when I was reading. So, yeah, Isaiah 54:15. If you're a Calvinist or you're a hard determinist, you have a real hard time trying to justify this verse. Because again, this fits into the idea that I just said about, we cause our own evil. So if anyone
Sounds,
stirs up strife, it
sounds
is
like it sounds like you're falling on your own sword, is what it's saying there.
oh yeah, yeah. It's just like Saul, and I always take things back to Saul too. Whenever I do evil, I know it's not because God was ordaining me to do these sins. I know it's my own iniquity. So yeah, if anyone stirs up strife, it is not from me. Whoever stirs up strife with you shall fall because of you. So it's also warning that the idols will, fall just like the sinner himself. But it's also so if it's the devil or a demon, they'll also be held accountable for stirring up the strife. But this one verse right here, it is not from me. It's just very important because granted, we know there's a lot of verses we can go to where it'll say the opposite almost, where things were done by God. This was done by God. So we know the Bible has both. But the point of the matter is that this verse right here is important because it points to the fact that when you do evil and you get bad results, there's verses like this to show you that God isn't the one causing that. So
Mhm.
I thought that was relevant. One of the few things I read today that I thought were relevant. What's going on, Eric?
Hello, brother. God bless you.
Yeah, God bless you too.
Hello, Nancy.
I
Hi,
think you
Eric.
might have to mute the YouTube, Eric, because I still hear it a little, like an echo or something.
Okay, I'll have to mute when you're talking then, I guess, when
No,
I'm not
not
talking.
mute your mic. I don't know. Did you close the YouTube when you came into StreamYard, or you still have?
Yeah, I don't have anything going
Uh,
other than us. But I do have you on speaker, and it's probably just coming through my
You sound better.
microphone.
You sound
So
better now.
thank you.
But
When I'm not talking, I'll mute.
yeah,
but
whatever.
but what I've noticed is with your whatever you're doing, it's like when you've got your speaker open and if I'm talking or something like that, or anybody's talking, it echoes our voices too. So there's something going on your end.
Yeah, it's not a crazy, terrible, ruin the show like echo, but it is a little echo. So I don't know. I just figured you might have had YouTube open, but yeah, when you mute it, it's not happening. So it's kind of annoying for you to have to do that. So sorry, but
It's okay. It's the price. I could do it another way, but I'm trying to do it in such a way that my wife can hear this too. Both sides of the conversation.
yeah.
So
Does
the
she
only
have
way,
to join?
yeah, the only way I can do that is to put up this other set where I can blare it through the speakers, and that way we can, that
Don't
way
you
we can.
don't you have a cell phone or something that she could use a separate telephone or cell phone or something?
No, I'm a dinosaur. I don't do smartphones.
Oh,
I just don't do them.
A
No,
cell phone?
what's that?
Do you have a cell phone?
I've just got a regular phone, yeah, but it doesn't do anything special. Make phone calls.
I'm surprised you
That's about
could even find those anymore. I'm surprised they even make one.
Well, it's an old one, brother. It's an old one.
Yeah, 'cause you can go to Walmart for like $40 and get a smartphone. I've taken friends of mine to Walmart and they just got not a name brand or anything, but it does a lot of the same stuff my phone does. It has GPS and Facebook, internet, all the stuff. So
Yeah, I know this might sound weird, but I'm frankly just not interested in owning one.
well, they do have downfalls because the government tracks your every move when you have it. So
Every move, and it's not that I go anywhere anyway that I would be ashamed of or anything, but it's nobody's business.
yeah, no.
And
The camera's always on the phone. There's a lot of
Yeah.
shitty stuff. Like I'm not blind to it all. We all kind of just bite the bullet and accept it.
yeah, well, that's a bullet I refuse to bite. I can live without it, and I do just fine without it. I don't miss it a bit. I really don't.
Yeah, the GPS is nice. Like I don't use a lot of the apps on the phone, but I can't lie, I use my GPS a lot. So if I'm
Oh
going
yeah,
anywhere, it's nice to have the GPS.
That
and
would
I
be an app I would probably use if I did own one for sure.
and
I
the,
do like the GPS.
for me, I travel all the time, and with my job and what I do, and so I usually sit and listen to videos along the way all the time. So always something going on. So I occupy or utilize every minute of my day doing something.
Hey, brother, could you scroll down what you're showing there just a tiny bit to where
Sure,
we can see verses 15 and 16?
sure.
I thought that was really interesting right there. If you don't mind me commenting on what you were already
Oh
talking
no,
about.
no, go. This is just random talk. I didn't really have much. I just was reading today, and these kind of verses stood out at me, and I figured I'd bring them out. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think it's funny how, sometimes when I was a kid and even a young man in the Lord, I had a misconception of what the Bible actually was, even though I read it all the time. I thought it was a random collection of disassociated sayings through which we could find wisdom. I didn't realize that these were orderly letters that were written in with intent and had direct purpose and were each portion of it targeting different things. I didn't know how to read it, and so I had a lot of problems trying to understand a lot of things on top of being dyslexic. But now though I came to an epiphany when it came to understanding how the Bible is so interrelated and it is extremely orderly, and there's nothing random about the way these verses are placed. And so
But
when I look,
excuse me, Jesus said, or not Jesus, but God, my word shall not go forth void. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. My
Amen.
word doesn't come back void. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I look there at 15, and I think that's very beautiful. As a matter of fact, a lot of what I streamed on tonight is pretty much covered right there in the 15th verse. If anyone stirs up strife, it's not from me, and whoever stirs up strife with you shall fall because of you. And now that's not because we wish evil on them or wish ill on them, but God is protecting us. God is in effect avenging us. And then you see something in the next verse that so many people mistake, and they don't associate it with the verse right before it. In 16 it says, and it's so misunderstood, I have created the smith that blows the coals in the fire and produces a weapon for its purpose. I've also created the ravager to destroy. Now, people completely disassociate that verse from all of the rest of this context many times, usually. And that's where you get the deterministic doctrines, like God determines that the rapist will rape, and God determines that the murderer will murder. He chooses the victim, and he chooses the abuser. And he makes them do what they do, and they have no choice. But that's not what this is saying at all. What I would encourage everybody to see is that what this is saying is, if you see people that are stirring up strife, that's not of God. But this is coming against people of God. And every person of God, every nation of God, the nation of Israel, the nation of Judah, has to undergo a purification. We go through a cleansing our entire life. Every problem that we meet is a chance, an opportunity for us to grow and to be like Christ and to reflect Christ. And that's what we're intended to do. That's what all of these problems and adversaries are supposed to do, to drive us to our knees and make us reflect Christ, but it's also to shame our adversaries. It's to express Christ's love to them. But what God does, like for instance, the Babylonian captivity, they wouldn't repent as a nation. They went a whoring after other gods. They wouldn't destroy their false idols. They wouldn't destroy the false prophets. They let people go astray. They encouraged it. They just let it. And they were so rebellious against God's law that after dealing with them with much long suffering, he sent them into Babylonian captivity. He destroyed the nation. But it wasn't to hurt them. It was to bring them back to God. And that's the important part here. You see, God created Babylon. God raised up Nebuchadnezzar. And he raised him up and used him specifically to come against Babylon, or to come against Israel, to bring them into captivity.
But look what happened after that. Mute for a second. It basically is they wound up intermarrying.
Hold on, Eric, you definitely do have to mute. For some reason, the echo got worse. And when she's, sorry. I don't know if you have any other way to fix it, but it was just really bad. But go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, I was just making a comment and an interjection is that when they went into Babylon and they were, persecuted for what they did, they still didn't change around. They incorporated the Babylonians in all of their.
Well, that's not the point, Nancy. The point is, I'm sorry. The point that I'm trying to make is that they eventually did repent. A lot of them did.
Well,
they were. If you might let me finish for just a moment. God used Babylon to bring to destroy the wicked and to bring a remnant back to himself. He's not concerned about the whole thing. He's concerned with the remnant, the few that are going to serve him. Like at the end of time, we see Israel destroyed by the nations that surround her. 2/3, but only 1/3 is going to be his remnant in the end. But you see, God did create the smith that blew the coals in the fire. He created the waster to destroy. But look at this. The very next verse after that, though.
Oh, I went to this just because you said the remnant part, but I'll go back.
Oh, okay. So, you see, the thing is, there is, I'm sorry. So, what we have here, we have a beautiful picture of God's people not stirring up strife. That it's only the devil's people that stirs up strife. And that they will fall because of us, but they are used also to purify us, to cleanse us. And they cleanse us, and then we're supposed to pray for them to help cleanse them, to bring them to repentance. But then the next verse is our verse of hope. Babylon was formed against them, but for the remnant, no weapon that was fashioned against them ever prospered. Look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They shined. They refused to kneel. As Israel was continued to go through a purging, a cleansing. Well, they refused to kneel. They refused to. Now, in the end, we had Belshazzar that was abusing the remnant. He was abusing the treasure of God, the gold, the vessels, and etc. And when God, now think of this, Daniel said something. Okay.
There's a chance that I can squeak.
No problem. Well, Daniel said something very, very important. He said, as I was reading, I'm sorry, I'm almost done, Nancy. He said, as I was reading the book of Jeremiah, I saw the number of years in which we were supposed to be captive, 70, was about over. And I began to repent for myself and for the nation. And you see, that's what all of this is intended to do. So no weapon that's formed against us, as he goes on to say there, will prosper. Because these weapons that were formed, they weren't formed against us. They're just used to burn the dross off, to make us more like Christ and to help us to show the love and forgiveness of God. It's a beautiful thing where we are cleansed by our enemies and we bless our enemies by praying for them and praying that God will work to convict them. That's all I had to say.
Well, the point that I was trying to make is that even though they went into captivity for 70 years into Babylon, when they came out of Babylon, they were intermarried. They created the Pharisaical priesthood. They went back to Israel or Jerusalem. They rebuilt the temple. And now they've corrupted themselves between the Hittites and the Canaanites. The priesthood has been now diluted and corrupted. We have Ananias as the chief priest and everything like that. They adopted so many of the customs of the Babylonians, and they created the Babylonian Talmud, which were rules for rules. And now they've built a new temple, and Jesus comes in, and I mean, he literally scourged those that were sitting out there in the vestibule and the hallway selling the sheep and the oxen and everything, and they were the money changers. And he's like, I'm not going to have my father's house turned into a house of thieves. I mean, it's like, okay, did they learn anything when they went to Babylon? Apparently not. They drug it all back with them to Jerusalem, and this is where the whole culmination happens, where Jesus is crucified, basically by the Babylonian Talmud. It's like there's so much that happened that it's like we need to take a lesson from that, because we're the United States and we're the last empire in the world right now, and we are going to fall. Am I still alive here? Hello?
Yeah, I was muted. I'm sorry.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know who I'm talking to right now. I just didn't know if I was being heard, because sometimes my booster here goes out of sequence and it.
Yeah, but what you're talking about there, Nancy? You know, what you're saying is true. But yet, you see, God did bring back a remnant from Babylon that were repentant. And yes, you're talking about an eventual apostasy setting in again. And by the time Jesus comes around, that's true. But you're talking about several hundred years later. And so, you know, there is that. The point is, when they kept going bad, when they kept apostatizing, God continually sent other nations against them. First the Assyrians, then the Babylonians. And then he, you know, when they abuse his children and take it past what God wanted, God intended it to be corporal punishment, like a spanking, you know. But when it went past that and they were abused, God sent in liberators to punish the ones, the abusers. For instance, Cyrus, Darius, they conquered Belshazzar because he couldn't respect God or these people. Look at Nebuchadnezzar. You know, he was close with Daniel, but by the time Belshazzar comes around, he don't even know who Daniel is. He didn't learn a thing. So yeah, he was beaten, he was overthrown, and God used us, the Medo-Persians, to do it. And then the Medo-Persians eventually were overthrown by the Greeks, who were overthrown by the Romans, and time goes on. That's how it works. So God uses all of these things to spank his people. But then no weapon that's formed against us, when these people hate us and they try to abuse us further, they're not going to prosper. They're just not
Well,
going to.
we're the United States right now, and we're the last empire as far as I can understand. I mean, we're the very final one, and basically we're going to try to subdue the whole world. The United States basically has become the emperor of the world. We've got bases, 800 bases all over the world, trying to control everybody. We've controlled the world dollar, which we've now lost. The Petro Reserve world currency. We've lost it. It's not if, it's we have. And at the same time, now we're going to be looking at Revelation with the 200 million man army coming from the east to destroy us.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, people that live in America, we all kind of sometimes get too egocentric, I think, because why are we I mean, yes, militaristically, nobody can really mess with us, at least it seems that way. But, there's China, there's Russia, there's other formidable countries. And population wise, we're only 330 million of like 7.5
Right.
people on
That's
Earth. So,
exactly what I'm trying to say, is that we have come to this culmination right now. We're in the very end days, and we are going to be crucified because China has built up forces on the Canadian side, the Mexican side, and they've infiltrated our country, and they bought up property which we should have never allowed any foreigner to, that is not a new U.S. citizen, to purchase land within the United States. And China has just been gobbling it up. And Russia and China are now allies, along with Iran, North Korea, and probably, I mean, any of the BRICS nations that are making this allegiance with the world currency right now. I mean, this standoff came with Ukraine. I mean, we're going to cut off your oil supply to Europe, or we're going to cut off your gas supply to Europe, and we're going to, sanction you. Well, what happened is the perfect sanction created Europe to be suffocated. Now they don't have, excess fuel. We've screwed up our whole economy because we're selling our petro fuel and everything. We've used up all our national reserves of fuel, and now we don't have anything left. Price of gas is going up. China has been buying it too, because Biden sold off a lot of our petro reserves to China. And here we are with, wide open. We have, what I'm trying to tell you is that if we have, being an ex-military person myself for 10 years with a top secret security clearance too, and although I'm not divulging anything top secret, it doesn't make sense that we have only 350 million people in the United States, and how many of them are eligible to serve in the military? Not hardly anything. How are we going to support 800 bases around the world? And we have a Navy fleet here, a Navy fleet there. One nuclear bomb will take out any of those nuclear, fleets that we have. And, it's like Russia and China have surpassed us in technology when it comes to the military. They have submarines, nuclear submarines. They're floating all over out there on our coastline. And some of them, most of them, a lot of them are undetectable. We don't know where they're at. They've got, weapons targeted toward our country. So we have screwed over Ukraine right now. Or not screwed over Ukraine. We screwed over Russia. We played games with Ukraine, and we played games with China. Now China and Russia and Iran and all of these, probably Turkey too, because Turkey is such a turncoat. They've all together, made a army that will come from the east, a 200 million man army. And what are we? We might have, I don't know, 800,000 people in the military, if that's even possible. I mean, and then, and then women and children and elderly, I mean, they don't serve in the military. So look at the statistics and the charts. We are screwed.
all right, but that's kind of my point. Like, when people want to read Revelation or they want to read America into it, like, put yourself in China and say you live in China, but you're trying to worship God. You might not even have, I mean, I know North Korea is definitely restricting it, but there's places like Nigeria. There's a lot of evil governments that don't even allow their citizens to read the Bible. I'm sure it's not the easiest thing in China. I'm sure I won't speak on it entirely because I'm not that educated on it. I just know, the government there is communist. So, there's
Well,
places in the world that can't even read their Bible. So if those people do get access to a Bible, they'd probably look at their country's government as, the evil country in
well,
Revelation. Where in America, we have a lot of freedom. We have the right to worship God. We're not the biggest country. We're not the world dominant power like Babylon was. Like, yes, we're powerful, but like you just said, like there's plenty of formidable other countries. Our greatest defense really is the ocean and the fact that we're, surrounded by ocean, and we have, we have enough to defend ourselves. Nobody's saying we don't have that, but I'm
how
just
are
saying.
you? How
I
are
don't
you
think
going?
that people
Some
want to
of
say
these,
America's in Revelation. Personally, it's just not
some of
my
these,
preference. But
some
you
of
can
these.
know it. It's not.
I mean, knowing full well, I follow this too, and I know the technology back in, 2000 or 1990. What was the year I was in? I got out in 2000. Wait a minute, 1999, 2000, or somewhere around there. Uh, 85, 95, I guess, 94, 95. Anyhow, now my knowledge of, our bases and everything worldwide, we don't stand a chance. Russian and Chinese technology has surpassed us to such a degree, and we have downsized our military, starting with Ronald Reagan. For crying out loud, we're going to downsize our military, and then Trump builds it up again. But we don't have the technology that not Europe, but Russia, and Russia has gone and excelled in technology that we don't have. They have weapons that we can't even detect. And it's like,
What was your point about American Revelation then? Because you're kind of like making my point that we shouldn't make America this Babylon of the world. That's the evilest country in the world. Like, what's your
well,
kind of
I
like
mean,
making my point?
I don't know what your experience is. I don't know what your age is, but I
40.
know you're very knowledgeable. How old are you?
I'm 40. I mean, I'm not very
Okay.
knowledgeable
and
either.
I'm not and I'm not
So,
dismissing that, but when I know these things and I watch and I observe everything in the news and I realize what our military strength is, what it used to be back in the World War II or something like that, we are no longer that nation. We are a nation that's a melting pot in the world right now, and we are in grave danger. We are not keeping the commandments. Abortion is number one top thing on our thing. That's sacrificing your children to Balaam, and now we're same-sex marriages, and it goes on and on and on. And how in the world is God going to protect the small remnant of people that are actually true blue Christians in this nation? Because we're a melting pot. We've got Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists. I mean, God bless them all, but it's like they've got their own laws, they've got their own religion, they've got their own ideals. And when they wrote our Constitution to separate state, government, and religion, I think that was a misnomer there, because when you go back and you look at what happened when the Pilgrims came to the United States way back there, 400 or 500 years ago now, and they basically they had a long legacy that they had before they ever got out of Europe, and they came over on 3 ships. And basically they came and they left and fled England, and the people that left and fled England were Sabbath keepers. They were Anabaptists. Then they went to, I think it was Amsterdam or whatever, and then they finally got permission to get on a ship and leave for the United States. And they packed the Geneva Bible with them, and they kept the Sabbath day, and they kept the feast days. This is a reality, and people just want to shove that under the rug and pretend it never happened. But then, I don't like what they did when they came into this country with the American Indians. But on the same token, I mean, this could be a blessed nation. I believe that the United States is the promised land that eventually shows up in Ezekiel or whatever, the land of unwalled villages, and it's going to be taken down.
Are you
Because-
guys familiar with Francis Bacon?
Right.
Oh,
I don't recognize the name. No.
Francis Bacon. He lived before, well, around the time of Ben Franklin and etc. Those fellows. He was an old man when Ben Franklin was a young man. As a matter of fact, many people believe that he was actually the one that wrote the Shakespearean plays. But he had a school of wisdom, I guess you could say. And he did a number of things. He was a forefather, I guess you could say, of this nation. And he called this nation the New Atlantis. He wrote a book called The New Atlantis. And he called this country the New Atlantis. And he himself had a vision. We all know the story of Atlantis. He knew it well. And he thought that the things that he followed, the philosophy he followed, the religion he followed, went back that far. And so I just thought it was amazing that he did call this a New Atlantis. And a lot of the forefathers knew him, and they agreed with this. They some of them have referred to this nation as the Promised Land. And that's interesting.
Could I read something to you guys? I wrote it back about 10 years ago, and it says, what is the meaning of America? It's not that long, but it's really interesting. Is it possible I can read that, Ryan?
sure, go ahead.
Okay, the actual meaning and truth of how America got her name. Okay, I wrote this, but I copied some stuff off of somebody else. Was America prophesied in the Bible? The actual name of America is not mentioned in the Bible, but nevertheless, this country very much exists in the Bible. America the beautiful, God bless America. One nation under God, indivisible, and justice for all. There is no question the United States of America is and has been the greatest nation on earth since the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock in 1621. When you get done reading the little article, blah, blah, blah. Okay, my favorite time. The great question is what was going on with the Christians in Europe and England before the Pilgrims made their voyage to on the Mayflower to America. What doctrine did these early Christians believe in and practice? Why did they risk their very lives to make a 3,453-mile voyage from Amsterdam to Plymouth Rock? What a perilling experience to face, but by far, what was far worse that they were leaving compared what they were to face on a venture to a whole new world. Researching the history of the Pilgrims, we find that they had escaped and fled from England. A little research quickly brings us to the sound truth that the Pilgrims were considered to be called separatists, led by a man named Robert Brown, who kept the seventh-day Sabbath and the Old Testament feast days and laws. At that time, the Church of England forced all of the occupants to keep Sunday as the Sabbath. The original Pilgrims were persecuted by Queen Elizabeth under the 1559 Uniformity Act, which required Sunday church attendance. Any person who failed to attend church services had to pay a fine of 12 or dinero, whatever that is, for each missed Sunday and a holy day. The penalties for conducting unofficial services including imprisonment and even greater fines. The Pilgrims, known as the Separatist Group or Independent Church, was later led by John Greenwald and Francis Johnson, who were executed on April 6, 1593. This led to the Pilgrims fleeing to Holland, where in 1620 they were eventually given permission to sail to America. The Pilgrims arrived in 1609 in Leiden, Holland, as refugees. Which they came in contact. Okay. They spent 11 years in Leiden, which they came in contact with the Dutch Mennonite. Another interesting fact is that the Mennonites were also a Seventh-day Sabbath church and were considered to be the first true Baptist church founded on principle of adult baptism, in which they were called Anabaptist. The Mennonite Church were descendants of the Waldensians, who were also Seventh-day Sabbath keepers who kept the Old Testament laws and Sabbath, the Passover, and circumcision. The sect referred to as the Anabaptists were the most persecuted of all Christian churches and existed prior to the Reformation of the Church of England. It was also believed that small hidden church groups and societies of Anabaptists went back all throughout Europe and had existed from the time of the apostles of Jesus. It suggested or recognized that these small churches have a succession or ancient lineage that goes far back rather than to the Roman Catholic Church. And I'm going to go on here into a little article that has never been, I came across this just by accident, and it tells how America got her name. And I'm reading this article verbatim. It's not very long. The most popular law taught in public school is the one about America being named after the Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci. Others attribute the name America to a version of the name of Richard Amarilek. He was the supporter and financier of the explorer John Cabot. However, both of these thoughts are untrue. The earliest map with the word America named on it was created by a German geographer and cartographer, which means a map maker, named Martin Waldseemüller. There were very few Waldseemüller maps in existence today. There are very few Waldseemüller maps in existence today. They are extremely valuable and reside in museums. Waldseemüller's work was studied by Louis Mickoski, professor of Slavic language and linguistic history. Okay, let me go on. What happened is Northmen were among the first known to have explored ancient America. Their word for the country was Omeric, Ami meaning out there, ultimate or final. The term Reich was spelled many different ways, but the equivalent of the German word Reich is to mean kingdom. So Omerreich means kingdom. Using this knowledge of linguistics, Professor Milkovics, or whatever, was able to correlate this term to an ancient Gothic phrase. It was the term Amalric. It was the name of the German term Himmelreich, and meaning, what did this mean? Amel meaning heaven and Reich meaning kingdom. Now listen very closely here, because this is how they determine the name of the United States. The kingdom of heaven, America, is what this is. This is all translated into the word Amalric, and Amel meaning heaven, and Reich meaning kingdom. The kingdom of heaven, America. This was what Martin Waldseemüller called this nation when he made his first maps of the new land. It was the ultimate. Now, basically, I'm just going to, finish this, is that basically when they named America, they put it all together in a German term, meaning this country that was out there, Amalric, and the German term Himmel meaning Reich, meaning Amel meant heaven, and the kingdom of heaven is what the United States was actually identified as. I can post the link in the whole article, but how we possessed land.
Cutting out, Nancy. You're cutting out. We're not hearing you. We heard most of that, but now you're cutting out if you're trying to talk. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Sometimes my speaker gets a little goofy.
Yeah, we didn't hear the last, like, you said America's name, like, resembled heaven, and then you just cut out, basically, after that.
America, the way I posted the link in the side chat to where I got all the documents and information, but it basically means that the America was coined way back when it was discovered, the kingdom of heaven. And, all of the other stories that we've heard don't necessarily match this, but this person was able to, excavate and find this information. I don't know if it means anything to you, but what I'm trying to say to you is that the pilgrims came over with the intention of being able to keep the feast days and the Sabbath days because they were so important to them. They were willing to risk their lives, leave a country, be exiled, and be able to come to a free new world now, so where they didn't have to be controlled by the kingdom that they were living in. And people don't know this. They think, oh, we don't have, separating church and state. Israel never, separated church and state. They remained church and state together. It was the Bible and the moral laws, the law of the Old Testament. And basically that was what made them a great nation when they were observing those laws under, the law of Moses.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot there, so I'd probably have to read it myself to grasp it. It's kind of hard just when somebody else is just reading the article, but Chris wants you to post it, so I don't know if you can
I've got it posted in the side chat.
I don't know. He doesn't. I haven't seen it on the thing yet, but I don't know if I'm just missing a message or what. But
it's not in your private chat. It is in the YouTube chat.
yeah, I don't see it on the StreamYard part, but yeah, I might be missing some of the comments on StreamYard because it was messing up the other day. But yeah, I don't know. Chris just asked for it. So.
I'll post it in StreamYard for you.
Well, post it again in the regular thing if you can, because Chris wanted it.
Oh, okay. I didn't. I think it came up, but
yeah, no, I just got it in the private chat. I don't know how to. What is this? A blog you have or something?
I have a blog, and I under one of your last videos, I posted some other stuff on Obama, and I gave it also to Eric about the Obama administration. And then, I wrote for a while in a blog post. Didn't get a lot of attention, but I had some interesting things to say, very controversial. I think some of it was removed by Google because they didn't like it too well. But
yeah, they might have censored you because you were saying some controversial things, probably.
And I don't know what to say. I mean, Eric has a lot of knowledge and information too. And I mean, him and I basically, I think he knows a lot of things that I know, and maybe more than I know in different areas, and I know more than he does in other areas, possibly. We both served in the military too in different capacities. So.
Well, I think a lot of presidents are really corrupt. I mean, like Skull and Bones, like Satan worshippers, like really as corrupt as a person can be. Because if you look at what they've done in Bohemian Grove, they're worshiping, the idol, the Canaanite Moloch, the idol,
and the owl.
Yeah, that's Moloch, the owl, and yeah, they do mock child sacrifice out there and all sorts of crazy stuff, and every single president goes out there. So to the Bohemian Grove in Oregon or California, I think.
And they also every president that gets inaugurated goes to Rome, to the Vatican, to visit the Pope. It's like It's all tied in together. It's a woven web. And there's a girl that was 12 years old in Arizona that she was given a accommodation for the fact that she proved that every single president in the United States came down through a great grandfather, great 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 grandfather in Europe or something like that, and they're all interrelated.
Yeah, I saw that too. Even Obama was like related to them all. Yeah, it's like pretty crazy when people find that type of information. It's just like we have our own monarchy basically. But yeah, I don't know. The people are individuals, and who knows? Only God knows everybody's heart. So I can't just always jump on every conspiracy theory because there's a lot of them out there too. So I used to really go hard with some of it, but nowadays I realize it's better just to let God judge him because if you're like if I'm gonna say, well, this guy's skull and bones or something like George Bush Jr. or whatever, he went to Yale, George Bush Sr. There's skull and bones in Yale, which is like this satanic cult thing fraternity. Like okay, I can't really prove that at all. I just seen it somewhere on the internet, and at the end of the day too, I still can't be judging them because I've done plenty of evil in my own life. So, at best, I can point it out to try to warn other people just to be aware of it if they're unaware. But I definitely can't just start saying, well, they're bad and I'm good. So we always have to remain humble and make sure, even when we're pointing out things that might not be the best things in society, that we're also pointing out that we're sinners and we're imperfect beings also, because that's an important way
You
to
know,
do it.
God says I guess it was back in, I can't identify scriptures either. I don't know where in the heck I know it, but it's in the Old Testament. It's like my people perish for lack of knowledge
Yeah,
because
they're
they're
all stupid children. I read that today. It's
I
I
mean,
think
it's like if you,
Jeremiah, they're
and
all
it's
stupid children or something. Yeah.
it's given to a king or queen or whatever. It's like, to search out a matter is to be commended or whatnot. I mean, I think that's in Proverbs. Anybody that goes and searches out a matter is, blessed or whatever, because I don't,
Well,
and it's hard for people to understand why I don't believe in Paul, and I'm not going to get on the subject, but
yeah.
it's like,
Hold on. I just want to tell people that's actually in Hosea, what you just quoted. What I read today in Jeremiah was just God saying, "My people are stupid children." That's what God said in Jeremiah. My people are stupid children. But yeah, this is the one you were talking about, Nancy, in Hosea 4:6. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I mean, it's just basically, it's like if you fail to, you know, ignorance is like, I think I quoted that the other night or whatever, and it's like from Einstein or whatever. The when you fail to seek out a matter and research it, and you make a statement before it happens or before you actually search out the matter, that's considered ignorance in the epitome of ignorance. It's like, if you haven't gone, I mean, you might hear some things that I say, and I'm never trying to go and mislead people. I believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John rule, are trump cards over anything else that might be in the Bible. Now, I also look at Peter and John and James and Jude and whatever, but a lot of that, and people, they worship the Bible. Oh, it's canonized. It's the 26 books. Bullshit. It's like it has been redacted, added to, and everything like that. I don't know about Matthew, Mark. I know that Mark, there's things that are added to the bottom of it because it wasn't in the original manuscripts. But I mean, I cling to the words of Jesus and the 12 apostles.
Yeah,
Anything that does not conform to that is like thrown out the window. And you guys
I
see
agree.
that.
I agree. I don't think any new Christian new. There's 27 books, not to be annoying and nitpick on you.
27 in the New Testament, right?
39 in the old. But no, I mean, I don't know any New Testament Christian that doesn't agree with you as far as we filter everything through Jesus's teaching. So I don't think you're
If you
alone,
listen to
you're
if,
not
if,
alone
you,
in that. We all do that.
if, if
It's you know,
if you listen to Ace Theo, you can adamantly
yeah,
say
he
that
does. Yeah, he does.
he is a universalist and everybody's going to be saved. And I think even Andy from England, he's like, oh, yeah, even Satan is going to be saved. Are you kidding me? I
Yeah.
mean, Jesus gives specific things that he says you cannot do. I never knew you. Even though you raised the dead, healed the sick, cast out demons. Did you really follow me? And is he going to deny somebody that's an unbeliever that comes to somebody that talks to them and tells them about Jesus and they're healed or something like that? That's a little unusual. I mean, it's like, okay, the person that healed you, they didn't heal you. It was what they said that the person believed about what Jesus said. So that person was healed. And I can remember being in a mission thing. I don't know if I mentioned this to your channel or something, another one the other night, is that when I went to Ghana, West Africa, and I was on a mission trip with my church, that we had all of the people that were representing, in the United States and the churches that were with us, and I was one of the entourage there. But it's like, okay, they called for a prayer healing, and we all stood up in front of the congregation in a line. I mean, there must have been 20 or 30 of us there, and the people in the congregation could come up, and they were all black, people that were so poor and whatever. They could come up and tell us something, and we would pray over them, and they would be healed. Did I talk to you about this before?
You brought up the thing before about going there. I don't remember exactly what your points were, but you did mention you went to this church before. I know that.
Well, I mean, it was sort of weird, but somebody came up to me at the very end of that, when I wasn't supposed to do or say anything more, but some guy came over there, blessing and praising, and, apparently something happened to him. And it's like, it's the belief in, like, a child, that when I mean, the Spirit of God can work through anybody. It worked through Nebuchadnezzar. It worked through Cyrus or whatever. I mean, the Spirit of God can work and do things through these people that might not even be Christians.
Sure,
Because
sure. Yeah.
why would God deny that person, like the Roman centurion that says, well, you don't have to do anything. I command a whole, squadron of people, and
Well,
I can come in and I can tell you this and they'll do it. So it's basically, he confirmed the fact that belief is stronger than anything.
well, to make your point, look at Balaam. The donkey rebuked him. It wasn't even, But seriously, I mean, I don't think the donkey was a Christian, but that's what God can do. He can make even a donkey rebuke you. So, yeah, Eric, what's your deal? You still here, or did you take a break? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm here. I was just muted while y'all were talking.
Yeah,
Oh,
I wish your sound thing. I don't know if well, how you could sort it out, but I know it's a pain to always hit
It's
mute.
okay. If I needed to change it, I could. I could plug my headsets instead of speakers, and that would take care of the
Yeah,
problem. But
I think it's
I
better. I think it's better now.
well, that's cool.
Yeah, you don't need to mute because I was just trying to check it right there and like talk while you're unmuted. But yeah, it's gone now, so you don't have to keep hitting mute. I don't know what you did, but it's gone.
I didn't do anything.
That's weird. That's weird. That's weird.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. That
if you rewatch the show, you'll hear it was echoing pretty good at the beginning. But yeah, now it's not doing it. But yeah, I never like very rarely, unless I'm eating food or something, I rarely hit mute. So I don't know. Some people are like big on muting themselves every time they're not talking, but I don't do that. So, but yeah, you're good now, so you don't have to do it. So that's one less thing you got to worry about.
oh,
But
that's cool. That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Speaking about America, though, I did see you said something that I've been thinking about for quite a while. You said I know America can, in a militaristic manner, defend ourselves versus anyone. I just don't know why so many Americans read the Bible as if the Bible authors viewed America as the center of the world. That's a very good point that I wanted to comment on.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm of the personal opinion that the United States is Mystery Babylon. Now, a lot of people disagree with that, and that's okay. That's not the point. But even if that is so, though, as I read the Bible, I don't think it's because I live in America that I view Mystery Babylon as being about the United States. That's not why. From my point of view, what happened to me, what convinced me was, at one time when I was in my early 20s, I was taught early, and I believed that the Mystery Babylon was the Catholic Church. That's what I was taught.
Yeah.
In many different churches. So that's what I believed. And what happened to me one day, I wasn't looking to change my opinion. I just happened to really pay attention to Revelation chapter 17 and 18. To really pay attention to it. And as I read it, I thought, my gosh, this doesn't sound like the Catholic Church anymore. This sounds like the United States. I had been in the military in 193rd Military Intelligence, Fort Clayton, Panama, during the Reagan administration. And so I had kind of a behind-the-scenes looks, which turned this patriotic boy into a red-pilled, very disillusioned man. And I saw what we actually were. I saw us overturning elected governments because I was there. I saw us building up criminal bosses, so that they could have an army to plague the governments. I watched all of this, and this is not the works of a righteous nation. And I went on to continue my disillusionment as I watched us make war all around the world for, well, I don't think there's ever a day where we're not. And who we couldn't buy, we bullied. And like Nigeria, for instance. Nigeria, we Christianized Nigeria, man. The West did. And Nigeria now sends missionaries to the United States because of our degraded lifestyles that we live. And Nigeria had laws against homosexuality, against, all kinds of things that they kind of stood for godly things. And so they didn't know abortion was illegal. And we bought them. We pressured them. We've been sending them the aid. We got them hooked on aid. And then we told them, look, if you don't change your abortion laws, we're dropping your aid. So they changed their abortion laws. And then we told them that if you don't start changing your laws on same-sex marriages and etc., you can't have this. And so they began to lighten up on homosexuality and stuff, public displays of it. And it's been my experience, when men wanted to spend euros or gold to buy oil, we killed them. And these are just sad facts, my friend. These are just sad facts. And as I read Revelation chapter 17 and 18, I realized we bully the world. And we recently, back in 2013, Germany and some of our allies said, hey, we want our gold. We said no. We said no. We've been keeping it for them and storing it for them. Of course, this makes them angry. And when I saw Babylon destroyed, it says that her friends hated her. It says also that she is destroyed from the inside. Consider this. Jeremiah chapter 50 refers to the daughter of Babylon, who I believe is Mystery Babylon. And it says that her end is this: she's going to be filled with men like caterpillars that lift up a shout against her. Now, that might sound a little bit weird, but think about this. I've seen trees that were invaded by caterpillars, that were destroyed by caterpillars. They eat all the greenery. They kill the tree. So when God uses that vision of, caterpillars, filling us up with men like caterpillars, it means that they're going to eat us alive from the inside and then finally lift up a shout against us. So there's an inside destruction, but there's also an outside destruction, because our allies hate us, according to Revelation 17 and 18. Our own allies are going to hate us and destroy us. So when I see those two things being destroyed from within and from without, because even our friends hate us, and when I read of her arrogance, she sits as a queen and won't see no sorrow, and she just pushes everybody around, does whatever she wants. This is not what I signed up for as an American. And I got to say, that's why my opinion changed, brother.
It's not a far-fetched opinion. I'm not saying it's impossible. You know what I mean? I respect people's opinion for it. I'm just honest on where I'm at with it, because I think it's important we don't
Oh yeah, I agree 100%.
We're just global on how we view things. Like, how does a person in North Korea view North Korea? Like, wouldn't they read North Korea as the most evil nation in the world? Or what about a Russian or a Chinese person? So
that is a valid point. They probably would, especially from the standpoint of being persecuted,
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a communist country, especially, it's just you're impoverished, you have no rights, something terrible's happened to your family, you would look at look at China. As much as they control the world's commerce, like a Chinese person could make a similar argument. That's my only point.
That's true.
And what about
because my answer, Eric, is I don't know. So don't think I have an answer. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I understand what your point is.
Yeah, my answer is I don't know. So it's like I'm taking less of a risk than you are. But you know what I mean? That's my answer. I don't know.
What about Saudi Arabia? I mean, they're
oil, and that's a good one, Nancy.
We're supposed to be allies with them, and they're bombing the hell out of Yemen. And I mean, it's like we let them get away with this. And it's like, oh, we go and we say, oh, look what Syria's doing. Syria was nobody disliked Assad in Syria. I mean, they loved him as a president. They unanimously voted him in. I mean, it was a peaceful country, but they wanted their oil, just like they wanted the oil in Iraq. And I mean, you might not want to hear about the conspiracies here, but there's a whole nother thing that's going behind Ukraine. Is Israel wants to go and claim Ukraine as their native country. And the reason is because Israel was hijacked by Ashkenazi Khazarian Jews that came up into Europe. They were proselytes back in around 700 or 600 AD. They were proselytes. They came up into Europe, and then they migrated into Europe, and then all of a sudden Hitler didn't like them. They took over the economic system, and then they said, we want our homeland back. Those Ashkenazi Jews, which are of the tribe of Gomer, have nothing to do with Israel. They're fake Jews. They've hijacked the country. And they control the economic system, just like the Babylonian, Pharisees controlled, the temple with all the sacrifices. And I mean, Ryan, you're not going to understand any of this that I'm telling you, because it's not because you're stupid, but ignorance is something that only means you're uninformed. You don't have the information. But when you start studying it and you understand who modern day Israel is and what they are doing to the world, we are we're prostrating ourselves. Our nation gives all kinds of donations to Israel. They have invaded our government. They have gone and they've got dual citizenship between Israel and the United States. They've controlled all of the economic things in the world, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. They control capital banking, central banking. They control every damn penny that goes throughout the world, at least right now. Russia and China and all these other countries that are going to the BRICS system are like, woohoo, we're happy. We're getting out from under this bullshit that the American petrodollar through the Israeli monetary fund is trying to be controlling us for, a couple centuries now. And maybe this
hold on, Nancy, because I want to hear you out. How can Israel be involved in this Ukraine Russia incident when you're trying to say Israel has influence over what Putin's doing to the Ukraine?
No, Israel, basically their grassroots, they were Ukrainian Ashkenazi Khazar Jews that were able to go and be converted. They were proselytes back around 600 or 700 AD. They converted to Judaism, and they were a very tribal group of people that was very volatile. And then when they proselyted, they started, observing all of the Torah customs and everything. They're not Jews. The only way I can explain this.
No, listen. I know the Ashkenazi originated in Europe, and it goes back to a certain.
No. It did not originate in Europe.
Where did it originate from? Then where did it originate
Turkey from? Turkey and the Balkan countries. What you need to do, you need to go back. You need to go back to Genesis 10.
Okay.
And read all of the information about Gomer and Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, Japheth. Under him, you've got all of the Ashkenazi, all of these. I think it's Japheth. You have all of these Ashkenazi and Gomer and it goes back, and then you can seek out the lineage. But what happened is they were proselyted around 600 to 700 or 800 AD, and that whole group of people in the Black Sea, the Balkan area, became Jews. And they're the ones that they're from the tribe of Ashkenaz. You have to go back to they were under Gomer. You have to go back to Genesis 10, and you will see that they are not true Jews, but they were converted. And so then they wiggled their way up through Europe, and then the Rockefellers and all of these Rockefellers, Rothschilds, and all of these people, their roots and heritage is based out of Ukraine and the Ashkenazi Jews. And then they became the imperial bankers of Europe. And then I think it was 1914 or something like that, I can't remember the exact year, the Balfour Declaration comes along. We want to go back to our homeland. They weren't Jews to begin with. They had no inheritance to, Jerusalem. But they claimed they were because they were of Jewish descent, which they were only proselytes. They have no connection. And they became the bankers of the world, the IMF, the Zionists, and then they got their homeland back, which it was not their homeland. Now I've listened to videos and everything like that, and you probably think I'm freaking nuts, but from other sources that I know, I can't, give you the details, but I'd have to go back through hundreds and thousands of videos that I've listened to, is that they want to make Ukraine now the center of their Jewish origin. And so Israel is behind this, behind the scenes, and you will never know it.
I would offer a different take on that understanding of the just for your consideration, where it talks about Jews that say they are Jews and are not. I don't. I understand why some people talk about the Ashkenazi Jews, but I'd like to point this out. God is always taking in converts. The Exodus is a good example of this. When we see the Exodus, a lot of the Egyptians, there were a lot of Ethiopians that went on the Exodus with them, and they were taken into the the congregation. Tradition says that the woman that raised Moses left with them. So, and there were others. She would have had her the people that she had, the servants and etc., follow with her and other things. And then there were like when we get to Jericho, we have Rahab the harlot that joins up, and all the laws specify when you have people that want to join in, let them do this, blah blah blah, and accept them. So God has always allowed other people to. Israel is kind of a very extremely unique thing because it's a nation, but it's much more than that. Because Israel still existed without the nation. It's a people, but it's more than that. So what then about this? Say they are Jews and are not. Well, I think Jesus clarified that. I think Paul clarified that when they tell us that not everybody that says they're a Jew is of the seed of Abraham. And not all the seed of Abraham are God's people. There's two kinds of seed of Abraham. There's the physical seed, and then there's the spiritual seed, of which we are the spiritual seed, but we're also entered into that tree. So really, you could say, are Jews. We are the real Jews. Now, I don't want anybody to mistake this for replacement theology, because it's not. The rest of the nation of Israel, the 1/3 of the nation that survives at the end.
Well, hold on, Eric. I just want to say what you're really saying is Christians are the real Jews. That's what you're really.
Well, the real Jews include Christians. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's better put.
Yeah.
The real Jews go back to Adam.
I object to that.
But you can. That's okay. But in my opinion, the real Jews go back to Adam and up through Christ and up through us and on down through the end until we see the resurrection of the church, all of the people before us, and we see Israel grafted in as the Lord is returning and saves that 1/3 that's left from annihilation. Grafting the nation back in. That's my opinion in a nutshell.
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, what happened here? All right. We're looking at Pauline theology here. Is everybody that's grafted into the root is baptized.
Actually, that's not Paul. I don't get that from Paul. Just so you know, I don't get that at all from Paul.
Like Nancy, look at this verse on the screen in Esther 8:17, and this is during the Persian period. Many people became Jews. So people were becoming Jews.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay, back in the Old Testament, which I'm a Messianic Jew, keep the feast days and the Sabbath days. I've been trained that for 60 some years in my life now. And I understand basically that, Gentiles were always allowed to be in the nation of Israel, and they could live there peaceably. And even if they didn't become converted, they could live there peaceably. And they would even inherit a portion of the land if they lived there. And, it was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Now, when you go through the Exodus and you go back into Israel and everything like that, okay, now we have a different rule. Well, it's not necessarily a different rule, but when it comes to the Passover and the celebration and in partaking of the lamb, and they continued on through this through, the time of Jesus, is that if you were a Gentile and you were not circumcised, you were not allowed to partake of the Judean Passover. You were prohibited from doing that. And this is a very, very, very important thing that I'm trying to portray to everybody that's listening here that says, I'm a Gentile. Why in the hell do you want to be a Gentile? I mean, it's like when you convert to Judaism, and Jesus was a Jew, and he was circumcised on the 8th day. He never changed the covenant, because the covenant between Israel and God was that you will, there are two covenants that were made right then. It was like, throughout your generations, you need to keep the Sabbath day so he can identify who you are. And second of all, if you keep the covenant of circumcision, then you're grafted in at that point in time into the root of the Gentile or Israel generations. The Israel covenant with God. So here we come into, this time now where Jesus is our Passover lamb. He was, the Passover lamb. He was Jewish. He was circumcised on the 8th day. And now we're looking at the fact that, okay, Paul jumps in here in the middle of it all and says, I'm the one that is the, apostle to the Gentiles. Screw everything else. You don't have to do all of these things. And so they have an agreement between James and Peter with the 12 apostles. Okay, but they never even knew who in the hell he was to begin with. He just, bebops into Jerusalem and says the Gentiles are getting all these things and we want to baptize them too. But at the same time, Paul was going to the synagogues and he was talking to people in the outer nations of Israel. And it's like, all right.
Nancy, if you can, try to curve around Paul tonight, because we've already.
All right. I'll shut my mouth about Paul.
Just try to mention him in passing, and then keep it.
I'm in passing right now. Okay. So he basically, he went out there, and James accosted him, in the very, very last part of Acts, and says, well, are you teaching that the Jews don't have to be circumcised and they don't have to worry about eating things sacrificed to idols? And Paul says, oh, yeah, I'll prove that right now. Well, he wound up in jail, and that was the end of the book of Acts. But at the same time, it's like we have to realize that the covenant between the older Israel was that the Gentile nation could not participate in Passover unless they were circumcised. It's like, all right, I'm going to put it very clearly and bluntly to you guys. There was never a covenant between the Gentile nation and God. It was a covenant between God and Israel. And somewhere down the line, it's like, all right, we get into the New Testament.
Hold on, Nancy, how can you say when God said to Abraham, I will make you a father of many nations, that didn't kind of include more nations than Israel? That's the epitome of the covenant that God made, the promise to Abraham.
Excuse me. God made a covenant with Abraham and said you were going to be a father of many nations, but the chosen nation was out of Isaac or Jacob, and it became Israel. And even we know that Ishmael was not the chosen nation. He married.
Nancy? Would you agree that? I'm just curious. Would you agree that uh, God divorced Israel and chose the rest of the nations when he grafted them
No,
back in?
no.
That would be my stance.
Okay, I basically say that, okay, God said that Abraham, and this prophecy is fulfilled, he would be a father of many nations. And he had Sarah, and she had uh, Isaac. He had, her handmaiden, uh, and then that produced Ishmael. And then later, after Sarah died, then also he took Keturah. But he gave different gifts to all of them. And it was like, okay, he is, yeah, the father of many nations. And in Revelations, it says, you cannot number the sands of the sea, that, Abraham was the father of many nations, but the chosen nation was Israel. And so Jesus comes back in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And how many times does he say, I have come not but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel? And we know in the Old Testament that God divorced Israel. And it was like, okay, because the scepter was like promise of Judah, that he would not give up Judah. That's called the treacherous sister of Israel. So he put up with this bullshit of Israel or Judah, and he came through, through the lineage of David down to, through Judah down to, his Matthew or Mark. Anyhow, he came down through that lineage. And now we're looking at the fact that, okay, all the nations, it's like at one point in time in the Old Testament, God divorced Israel. And so God, Jesus, or whatever, because I believe the person in the Old Testament was actually Jesus. That was his bride, Leah, through Leah and Rebecca. And he divorced Israel. And basically now Judah, he's not going to go and forget her, because he's got to come down through that scepter of Israel. But Israel, on the other hand, was, they were scattered throughout the nations. They were all gone. And what did Jesus say? I have not come but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And then he says, my sheep will hear my voice. So if any one of you here right now are listening to me, and it's like this has stood out in my mind for like 10 years now, my sheep will hear my voice. It's not the Gentiles that Jesus came for. He came for his lost sheep of Israel. And many of them were scattered out throughout the Mediterranean countries. They were in, the synagogues. That's where
But
Paul
Nancy,
went.
don't you think that Israel was supposed to be a light for the Gentiles?
I
And
don't
what?
deny it.
And
I
yeah, and
don't.
why? The point is, why though? Why though were they a light for the Gentiles? What was God's goal, intended purpose of making them a light for the Gentiles if it wasn't to graft
You're,
the Gentiles
you're,
in?
you're convoluting what I'm trying to say right now. It's
No, I'm just asking. What I'm
he,
saying is, I think that God intended all along. Uh, when you look at first, there was no Jew, no Gentile. You just had the people until the flood, and then after the flood, you see the world divided into nations,
I,
and then
you're
yeah.
interjecting into my thought right now, so I can't complete, because you're like, I can't complete my
Well,
total thought.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask about this before I have to go because I'm going to have to leave very shortly here.
Okay, I'll try to
Um,
sum very quickly. Is the fact that um, God departed from Israel because they were fallen, and then he continued on with Judah. But at the same time, when he came back, he says he's now trying to bring these two sticks together, Judah and Israel. He's trying to bring these two sticks back together to make it one nation again. And he's basically going after all of Israel. And he told the apostles, do not go to the Gentiles or do not go to the Samaritans. In my understanding of this, it would be because they would corrupt the gospel, and the Samaritans were not of anything to do with Israel. He was looking to get back his nation and his lost bride. And if put it this way, to make it very concrete and solid for you guys, my sheep hear my voice. Now, if you're here today because you believe that Jesus is your Savior and you are of the kingdom of heaven, you are one of his sheep. And basically, the Gentiles are not one of his sheep. Not to say that the Gentiles of Rome and whatever, and Antioch and all over the place can't come in, but at the same time, I believe that circumcision is so important that even in this latter day, it was commanded in the Old Testament, it's commanded in the New. Don't make it a lax thing, because James was really angry with Peter, saying, are you actually saying that the Jews don't have to be circumcised to receive the whole benefit of everything like that? And it's like, you need to be circumcised. If you're a male, you need to be circumcised, because you can't partake of the Passover of the Passover lamb, which is Jesus, unless you are circumcised. So I'm going to shut my mouth.
Okay.
I'm going to shut my mouth, because it's like, if you can't see that, you're going to stick your feet out and say, oh, well, I'm just as good as the rest of them. No, you have to be circumcised in Christ to receive that Passover covering.
I don't know. I would say that the spirit of the law is what God intended all along, and that he's very clear in that when he speaks in the New Testament, or in the Old Testament rather, and he says, I'm sick of your feasts. I'm sick of your assemblies. Now, these are things that God ordered. He ordered these feasts. He ordered these assemblies. But he says, I am so sick of you. I'm sick of the fact that you go through with all of this stuff, and you think you're righteous because you're not murdering anybody with your bare hands, but you're hating them with your heart. You're not relieving the widow and the poor and this and that. You're not being a light to the Gentiles. He was very clear that he would prefer that they lived in mercy and love and forgiveness, and that they shone the light to the Gentiles that they were supposed to send. At first, you see, there were no Jew and Gentile. There were none. Now, when God separated the nations at the Tower of Babel, all of a sudden, for the first time in history, you have a separation of people where God takes one man to make a nation of him, and he divorces the rest of the world. You see, we were all his people at one time. We were all his people. Anybody that would be obedient. Abel, Adam, Noah, the heroes and men of faith that we see in the book of Hebrews there, that were obedient to the commands of God, and their obedience brought salvation. So then when you come to the separation, now all of a sudden you have Jews and you have Gentiles. You have Israel and you have Gentiles.
Can I ask you a question?
Well, if I could finish it, if you don't mind.
Can I ask you? Could I ask you? If you don't mind.
If you don't mind, just let me finish.
One quick question.
I'm sorry, but I get distracted easily, Nancy. I'm an old man. Give me a break.
I'm an old woman.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's common consideration.
Be considerate.
Okay.
I'm asking you one question.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
I'm asking you one question.
Okay. I would have
a Jew or a Gentile?
I would have appreciated you asking this. later when I was done. But the point is, I'm neither. If you're going to ask, and then on the other hand, I am a Jew. The book is clear. There is no Jew or Gentile. There is no male or female, but we are all one in Christ. And yet the true Jew are the ones that obey God. It's not the ones that are circumcised. It's not the ones that live in Israel. It's not a member of any particular tribe. It's those that are obedient to Christ. Even the Jews that were Jews, if they were disobedient, they are not Jews. They are not God's people. It's only the ones that are obedient to the call that are his people. So that's all I'm saying. I really think that I think the rest leads to elitism, and it can lead to, and I'm not saying anybody's a narcissist. I'm not saying that at all. But it can lead to that sort of a narcissistic thing. It can make God look like he's approving of narcissistic action, and he's not. His intent all along was to bring as many people as possible. And for God so loved, not Abraham or Isaac and Jacob, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. It was a call to everybody.
So let me ask this question. Let me ask you a question about.
Well,
okay.
I would go to. I would also refer to Jesus' statement about the lost. Yes, he did send out first to the lost within the land of Israel, but then we came to a point of saturation. We reached a point to where pretty much as many Jews as could be saved were going to be saved in that time period. And the rest of Israel hardened their heart. And so they were cut off. They were blatantly cut off. And the Gentiles grafted in so that as many of the Gentiles that would come in could come in and would come in. And from that point, it became our responsibility to be a light back to Israel, to one another and to Israel. But we, in our last days, have become apostate. We've gone the way of Israel as a church. And so you have many people sitting within the church that is not a true Jew.
Okay.
They are not a member of the church. They are not a member of the body of Christ, many of them. So what you have then is a picture of the same story told over and over. This people gets this chance, they fail. The other people get that chance, they fail. And so then in the end, what you have is everybody that was obedient to Christ becomes that family. And everybody that was disobedient are done away with in the lake of fire. And so there is no, when it comes right down to it, there's no Jew, no Gentile, and yet we're all the true Jew if who believe. I'm sorry, I'll shut up now, guys.
Okay.
As
Eric.
a matter of fact, I'm going to have to leave, guys. I really hate to do this.
So I can't respond to you. I'm going to have to leave. I guess
no.
Yourself as an
Give her 2 minutes, Eric. Give her 2 minutes, so she can just respond. 2 minutes.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not trying to keep you long. I just don't want Nancy to feel like she got shortchanged. So
yeah, I didn't want her to feel that way either. It wasn't intended to be that. I've got that.
Go ahead, Nancy. Let them have it.
It's interesting. It's like, oh my God, you're full of shit. And I know all the truth here. And this is what, I don't agree with Paul. And basically, we have to keep that covenant. And I'm trying to tell people it's so important. Ruth and what was there, Rahab, were the only two people that I can remember right now, there are probably more, that actually converted to Judaism. And Ruth is the, great-great-grandmother or whatever, King David. And then we have Rahab, And it's like they went and they completely converted. And it's like, all right, now we have this, we have the ability to have descendants from, you know, Gentile nations, but they chose on their own that they were going to believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and whatever. And it's like it's as Christians today, if we want to be, you know, part of that lineage, and you're a male, I think it would be the greatest thing that you would decide, even if you're not circumcised, to be circumcised. Because I don't see how you can still partake of the Passover and communion and take the bread and the blood of Jesus to be completely protected and covered over. And maybe all of you guys think I'm totally nuts or insane.
All right,
but
you're free
I
to leave
think
now because she's talking about circumcision. You can get out of here.
all right. I understand you don't like that idea.
You're
And
so anti Paul. You have to write a chapter just to go against his circumcision teaching, huh, Nancy?
well, you know, what would you think, Ryan? What would you do?
Nancy, let me ask you something. Would you be interested in sitting down sometime and discussing why we should accept Paul?
I've told you that in the past, but we need to have a referee because you overtalk
Well, that's cool.
everybody.
That's cool. We could do that. And you know, JG would be a good example of a good referee. He would give somebody like 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. But what I'm thinking is,
I mean,
I would love for us to have that conversation. We could just take 5 minutes apiece and in order, back and forth. You know, it doesn't have to be violent.
it's
But
you know, I've done I've done about 4.5 years of research on Paul right now,
and I think most of it's wrong.
You think it's wrong?
I'm
But
sorry.
what if-
I just really do. And I'm not meaning to be mean. I'm really not. I think that sometimes we can accept sources that are less than credible. And
Let me ask you this. What would happen if you found out that you were wrong?
well, I would switch. I
Okay.
certainly would. I'm not too proud. You see, I'm a man that changes. I am a man that evolves. A good example of that is I used to be a pre-tribber, and now I'm no longer a pre-tribber. I dropped that decades ago.
Well, let me explain.
I used to be a young Earth creationist. I'm no longer a young Earth creationist. I'm an old Earth creationist. But then I also used to be an old Earth creationist that believed in deep time. But I'm no longer an old Earth creationist that believes in deep time. I'm an old Earth creation that believes that we live in a young age. But that's what I'm saying. We evolve.
I'm also an ordained teacher, a teacher or ordained preacher or whatever. You know, I have an ordination certificate, and I also taught and preached in Mobile, Alabama. They're correctional. I have a certification in correctional ministries.
Yeah, you used to study together with somebody in particular that was also anti-Paul, right?
No, I have never studied with anybody. I go across the internet every day and I look at people that talk about Paul.
Okay, well, I heard you talking one time. I'm sorry.
I have a question for you, Eric. I have a very deep question. How much have you studied into the history of Paul yourself? Tell me in
quite a bit.
Two sentences. How much have you studied into the history of Paul?
Well, some. I don't know.
Don't know.
Enough for my own satisfaction, I'm sure. But you know, I disagree with you. That's all. So what I'd like to know is why. What about Paul's message you find different from Jesus's message? That's what I'm wondering.
Degrees controversial.
What?
And you don't even know what I'm talking about. You
Well,
don't
that's rather vague.
think about what I'm
Yes.
talking about because you've never studied it.
Well, that's not true. You're speaking vagaries. I'm speaking specifically.
No, you're taking
Specifically, what I'm asking is what message specifically does Paul give that
What
you think is contrary to the
Ryan-
message of Christ?
Ryan asked me the other night, say it in 2 or 3 sentences what you don't like about, or 3 things you don't like about Paul. And it's like it's going to hit your ears like, oh, you're full of shit.
No,
And
all I'm asking is what specific teaching do you see Paul teaching that is contrary to Christ?
Yeah, just give specifics. Just save some time. Just say, like you were saying, circumcision or the Gentiles being adopted in. Just bang out a couple, just specific, so we don't go in circles here.
Okay, I'm going to say one thing that Paul says the law is a curse unto you. Now think about what Jesus said about the same statement. And I don't want to hear enough about I don't want to hear another word about it from you, Eric. What did
Paul what verse?
The law was a curse, and Jesus said another thing. Now,
which verse? What verse? What verse are you talking about specifically?
You have a Bible, and you have a thesaurus.
So you can't point to that verse?
I mean, Eric, we're kind of familiar. He said like Romans 5, I think, is one of them. I'm trying to help her out here.
Well, but let's look for the context. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, Eric, I know. I'm just saying, like, we don't have to. If she doesn't know the exact verse, we still can work with her, because we know Paul did say that, but he doesn't like mean it in the way she's taking it, But I'll have to look for it.
That's what your interpretation, Brian.
Well, yeah, you can interpret how you want. I'm not saying you can't, but I don't agree with your interpretation either.
Nancy, 1 Timothy. Nancy. Pardon me, Nancy. May I speak for a moment? Nancy.
Just shut up for Eric.
Shut up. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
Nancy, 1 Timothy chapter 1. 1 Timothy chapter 1. You can't give me a scripture, but I'm giving you one. 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 8. If a man, we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. That's the writings of Paul. But we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully. Knowing this, the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for sinners, for holy and profane, for unholy and profane. So there you go. I mean, that's pretty clear, isn't it?
I don't know if this is the one you were thinking of, Nancy, but I got Galatians 3:13 as, maybe something you may have been thinking of. I don't know.
I know all of this. Basically, everybody that I ever talked to concerning Paul tries to go and turn around and quote Paul to me and all of his stuff. I'm a historian, for crying out loud. You don't become your own witness. You have to have 2 or 3 other people that surround you that confirm the fact that these things have happened. Paul has no witnesses. And if you want to go and say what Paul says in Galatians or Ephesians or whatever, it's bullshit. You cannot go and quote Paul's scripture.
Well, here's my point, Nancy. You keep saying this, and I understand that, but you just keep repeating it over and over and over. And then when you're asked for a specific point where he is teaching something contrary to Christ, you can't do it. You've not shown me anything anyway.
I can, Eric. You never shut up your mouth.
I'm shutting up right now.
Well, there are tons of things. I mean, it's like Jesus said,
show me one. That's all I'm asking. Don't tell me there's tons of them. Please just show me one.
The biggest thing is that Jesus said the law will never be done away with until heaven and earth are done away with.
Can you just?
Are you going to shut up for a minute?
Well,
And it said,
you
and he
see,
also said, wait a minute. He said, the heaven and earth will never be done away with until the law will never be done away with until heaven and earth are done away with. Those that teach against the law will be the least in the kingdom, and those that teach for the law will be the greatest.
well, I think Paul teaches
And
us to keep
Paul
the law.
says, wait a minute, you're no. Paul says immediately, I mean, it's like he contradicts the whole thing. He says, the law is a curse unto you. He says that the law is a curse unto you.
Well,
And
that's why
there's
I want to see that.
I mean,
I want to see that particular
Then
verse, and I want to see it in
go
context.
look
That's
it
all I'm
up.
asking.
You're not,
No, you see,
you're
you're the
not,
one claiming it's there.
not
So it should be
there.
you that looks it up and gives it to me. So all I'm saying is, when you go to you go to Romans chapter 1, and in Romans chapter 1 he says
I don't know
that even the
you cannot
Nancy.
All right. One
I'm
verse
not
I'll
gonna
say
go
where
and listen to your
maybe
bullshit.
Nancy's getting her doctrine from, just to help her out with a specific verse. You know,
I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to be thorough. That's all, Nancy. We don't have to be hostile.
you know, that Nancy is a different way. We know chapter 6 starts off with Paul saying, does that mean we should sin so grace can abound? You know, never, you know, but Nancy probably reads verses like 520, I'm sure, you know, from a very different lens than we do. So now the law came in to increase the trespass, but where sin increased, grace abounded all the more, so that as sin reigned in death, grace also might reign through righteousness, leading to eternal life through Christ Jesus our Lord. So me and you will read that, Eric, and probably say, wow, that's beautiful. But she'll read it and say, well, Paul's blaming the law for increasing sin, you know, increasing trespass. So, you know, she just reads these type of verses, you know, you get it. I mean,
Yeah, all that does, what he means there, isn't it? That the law manifests our sin, because without the law, we don't know it's sin.
Yeah.
It only becomes sin because of the law, right? And we're only aware that it's sin because of the law. So the law is a good thing. But if you go to places like, well, heck, I was reading just this evening, and it talks about, like, for instance, when the Gentiles who have not the law do by nature the things contained in the law, they become a law unto themselves.
Yeah. That's a good one. What was that in again?
That's in Romans chapter 1.
Yeah.
Romans chapter 1. So there we have even the Gentiles that are really God's people. It says they're keeping the law of God in their hearts.
Yeah.
Now, you see,
just lost her, so I don't know if that was on purpose or probably just technical issue. So I'm assuming it was technical issue. I don't think she left on purpose. But,
yeah. And I wasn't meaning to upset you, Nancy. I really was not. I wanted to have just a cool conversation with you. That was all. I'm sorry.
One day she should come prepared with, like, you know, 10 verses written down. Oh, okay. Come on back on if you want, Nancy. Just hit the link. It's pinned.
Yeah.
I figured it was just a.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm not mean. I just want you to know too, I'm not trying to be mean at all.
You're not being mean. I mean, you're just, you know, standing on what I stand on. It's just, you know, she has her own opinion on it, and, you know, it's going to be hard for her to compromise until she's ready to.
Yeah, and I really don't want her to compromise.
Change, but I
mean,
the
reason,
you know, she just views the verses so differently. Like the Jesus verse she's quoting about Matthew 15, about Christ saying he only came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He literally, within 3 verses after saying that, heals the Canaanite woman's daughter who demonstrates faith. So it's like,
exactly,
the Hebrew Israelites that read that verse and try to make it all about, you know, Israelite only salvation and pervert it. Like they're totally perverting what's obvious in the story itself. The moral of the story is right after he says that and says it's not right to give the children's bread to the dogs. the woman says, but even the dogs get the crumbs that fall from their master's table, and he heals her daughter. So he's demonstrating that he's willing to heal people of faith right in that story. So I don't know why people take Matthew 15 and try to rip it out of context, but it's like watching the beginning of a movie and not mentioning what happens at the end of the movie. Like a character's a drug addict in the beginning of the movie, and then at the end and I'm not, God forbid, I'm not trying to, nobody should ever take this as what I'm referring to anything with Jesus. I'm just trying to make an example of like the beginning of a movie to the end of the movie, and that was the first thing that came to my mind. Somebody's an alcoholic or something in the beginning of the movie, and then at the end of the movie they're sober and helping other people, and the person wants to just say, well, in the beginning of the movie they're an alcoholic. Like if you're going to take scriptures where Jesus's first mission was to save Israel, and he's going to say verses that will represent that mission, where he sends out the disciples and tells them to not go into the way of the Gentiles or something like that, then you're perverting what Jesus's mission was, because his first mission is to save Israel, and then after that the world. So he's got a two-part mission. It's got an order, and it's got an order for a reason. But anyways,
yeah. So the reason, Nancy, that I asked for your specific verse is because I don't know of a single verse that words it like you just worded it. Not a single one. And words have a very important part in this, because we can use words that have influence that take away from the meaning or improve the meaning. So we have to be very careful. That's why I'm asking for a specific verse. I'm not trying to trap you.
Eric,
And also the context of the verse is very important, because like, for instance, where it says the law is good, somebody could take that wrong and say that, this is proof that you have to live the 600 and some odd, laws that God laid down for Israel, when that's not what it's talking about. You got to look at the entire thing, where it talks about the law is good if one uses it lawfully. And then you begin to understand that he's talking about, for instance, the 10 Commandments and using these things lawfully.
Eric,
So that's why I'm asking you for a specific verse, so that we can talk about it in an intelligent way.
Okay, Eric, for one thing, every time I've been on your channel, if I don't say something you like, you put me in backstage. Now, Ryan is not going to put me in backstage. I hope not. He's going to let me expound and talk about what I have to say.
Mhm.
And
Well, you see, this is
you're going to overtalk me again.
no, that's fine. No, I won't. I just wanted to say I hope you answer my question, so that I don't have to just leave. And if you want to know why you were put backstage, that's why. I would ask you a specific question, and you would go on and on about everything but that specific question. And all I'm asking is for one single verse. That's all.
Well, let me tell you this. I don't speak in one specific term or voice or verse or whatever. I'm a woman. I can think with two sides of my brain at the same time.
Well, I can't. And that's what I need, a specific verse.
Well, that's your problem, not mine.
Okay, so that we can't have an intelligent conversation. That's really sad.
That's not appropriate.
Well, I think if you're going to have an honest conversation, it is appropriate.
All right,
Well,
let's work with her today, because you put her on the spot. Maybe
I
next
did.
time, Nancy, you can have verses prepared. So this comes up, you'll be ready to just go bing, 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 and you'll have like 10 verses written. But since you did put her on the spot, let's let her make some arguments, because I can't always remember exact verses either. So as long as she's speaking what seems, familiar to us, Eric, let's try to give her a chance. Go ahead.
Well, like I said, brother, the reason I asked for a specific verse is because I want the wording.
I get it.
I don't want, well, it says approximately this. I want to read the exact wording, and I want to read it in more than one version of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I want to also read it in the Greek or the Hebrew, whatever.
Mhm.
And I want a chance to read the context. I want to read the verses before it and after it. That's the only
Yeah.
reason I'm asking.
When she's describing what seems familiar to us, I'll try to figure out where she's at and go to the verses. Like if she
Well, that's
starts
okay.
speaking on the circumcision or something, I'll Google the
It's
circumcision.
okay. I'm not being mean or anything. I just but that's okay. And I'm not meaning to put you on the spot, Nancy. I'm really not. I was just really curious and interested in a conversation. That's all. If we could find some specific thing that you could show me, he said, that was contrary to Jesus, that was all. So, I do have to run, and I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I should have been gone 20 minutes ago, guys. I really had to be.
Yeah. Come back later
But
if we're still going, but I'm probably not because I got a show tomorrow afternoon with Dr. Kip Davis
that's
that
cool.
I'm looking forward to 4 o'clock. I hope you come by and check that out, Eric.
I
if
would
you're
love
around.
to, and
Yeah,
I would also love to talk to you about this more, Nancy. And I mean that sincerely. It's not a trap. I'm 100% sincere. Either you can teach me something, or I can teach you something.
all
And
right.
I'm not above either one. So
Well,
I'll
now, Nancy. You know now to next time you got a chance, go in your research, go in your notes, try to write down just 10 verses so when you run into Eric, you can put him in his place. All right.
Ay, ay, ay. All I have to say is ay, 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 because he never shuts up.
All right.
God bless you, Nancy. God bless you. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Good night, everybody. Good night, Optimum Prime, and whoever else is there. God bless you guys.
All right, Nancy. You got to get prepared though. You got 4 years of research on Paul. You got to be locked and loaded for these type of conversations. He wasn't asking for much. He was just asking for specific verses. You should be ready for that. See, Ace Philosophy's got a top 10 on Paul verses he hates. Ace Philosophy would have had 10.
Brian, for crying out loud, do you realize that I have, for about a year and a half or 2 years, I have fed Ace Philosophy with information through emails and whatever in details.
Now you're taking credit for Ace Philosophy's top.
No, I'm not. Because he was curious about Paul, and 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, he hasn't been around. I hope he's all right. I haven't seen him.
Well, basically, it's like he doesn't. I mean, he's been in agreement with me on a lot of things, and then he says, "Oh, you're just off the record here," because he believes a lot of different things that I don't believe, like Jesus was a vegetarian and things like that. And it's like, I just, he gets upset with
Jesus was eating fish. What is that? I mean, does that count in the vegetarian discussion to him?
I have no idea, but he comes up with the idea that Jesus
was eating the Passover lamb too. I don't know where he gets this vegetarian idea.
Yeah, I would think that, when they observed the Passover and he was a ritual Jew and he was, his circumcision was on the 8th day and everything like that. How in the hell did he ever, I mean, if he was a vegetarian, I mean, it's like that doesn't make any sense at all to me. So, I love A's philosophy. I like Dirty Varmint too. I mean, Dirty Varmint and I are like two peas in a pod, but we disagree about some certain things. And he does not see anything about the Gospel of John and Revelation as anything relevant. So it's like I see things that people do and say, and it's like, okay, now where do I go with this? And I try to pass on information, but what was the thing that you were talking to me about just a few minutes ago? I lost my thought here about
writing verses down. That's about it.
What?
Just writing some exact verses down, because I know
but
idea-wise, You wanted
the last person I was talking to, he was just so
oh,
adamant.
philosophy.
No, not atheist philosophy. The last person that was arguing with me that he didn't believe anything I had to say. Put it that way.
I don't know.
I don't remember A's philosophy. A's philosophy hasn't been on here tonight, has he?
No, that's what I mean. He hasn't been around for a couple of weeks, so I hope he's all right.
Oh, okay. Well, anyhow, the last person that was arguing with me that, just absolutely said that I was nuts or whatever.
Oh, Nancy, that happens every show. That happens. You run into a person every show that says that, because every show you say, you do your Paul stuff, Paul material.
Well, I mean, it's
like a comic with a routine, and every show you do I hate.
But you know what?
I hate 45% of the New Testament. I hate Paul. I mean, that's gonna. You go on a Christian channel, that's gonna,
I don't say I hate Paul. I say I don't like his doctrine, and it's contrary to Jesus. So, I mean, you asked me to come on, and I come on, and I'm like, all right, you guys could agree about Paul all day long till the cows come home, but it's becoming something that people don't even recognize. They don't even understand it. I mean, 50, 100 years ago, we had no access to the internet. And in the last 20 or 30 years, it's like every piece of information that's been in any public library that has to do with theology is all of a sudden, manifested itself, and we can pull it up at our fingertips. And when we find out things that are contrary to what is written and what people consider the Holy Bible, which was basically designated as the Holy Bible according to the Catholic Church, are contrary to the teachings of Jesus.
Okay, so hold on, Nancy. I want to ask you an honest question to get your opinion on it then. Do you think Paul spent his entire life till the day he died rebelling against what Jesus taught?
That's not a fair question.
No, it is. It is a fair question, because that's what you're saying. He did. He taught against Jesus's teachings. So, do you think it was an accident? So I can ask the question and put a little caveat on it if you want it to be a little more, of a caveat. Do you think Paul intentionally rebelled against Jesus and taught against him till the day he died? Or was Paul ignorant and unintentionally rebelled against Jesus's teachings? Which one is it? Unintentional.
I would suggest to you that you go to my YouTube channel, which is.
I can't go search your page for the answer. I just asked you a question.
I'm telling you something. Quit being critical. I'm saying go to my YouTube channel and look at my video, which is I've talked about.
I didn't know you had a channel. What's the name of your channel? New Genesis?
New Genesis Connection. That's it.
Well, yeah, I didn't even know you had a channel.
Yeah, I do, and I posted a video about Paul in there, and I spoke for about an hour, and I explained the fact that Paul was a Herodian.
Yeah.
He was not he was of the Herodian family. He knew all of these people that were in the Herodian dynasty, as well as Nero and everything like that. He was a high level person. And I mean, I can't go into this in if I go into the side chat and I talk about this stuff and I combat people that give me 5 seconds, 10 seconds or whatever on your channel or whatever, I can't explain to you that Paul was a Herodian. He was high up in the Herodian family. He was integrated into all of these positions. He knew Nero, and he was I mean, how in the hell did Paul have 400 and some garrisons that protected him as he went into court in Jerusalem if he was not of a Herodian family that protected him? And I mean, it's like ridiculous. It's like, who gets all of this entreprenage that follows him all the way up to Rome? He has his own private, house and whatever that he's housed up in, and
hold on a second, Nancy, because I want to change this screen. But everybody, try to subscribe to Nancy's channel. It's right here, New Genesis Connection. It's easier if you go to filters and filter it by channel. That's how I did it, because other things pop up when you type in her name. So try to go to filters and go to channel if you want to make it easier. And
New Genesis.
It's free. Even if you don't watch the channel, you're still helping her channel grow, and the Word of God will maybe reach somebody else. Even if you don't agree with everything she says, you can still help her grow, and she might say something to help somebody. So, all right. So yeah, you just got another subscriber, Nancy. Yeah, because it was at one. I subscribed, and then somebody else subscribed. You just got 2 subscribers. So thank you for whoever else.
I'm not trying to make things out. Research. You need to go and historically research. It's this issue with Paul has not been something that came across in this last couple hundred years, but this last 10 or 12 years or whatever. It's like this has been an ongoing thing for 2,000 years about Paul. And people talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And the Catholic Church basically incorporated the epistles of Paul from Marcion, who is a complete heretic, in the middle of the 2nd century AD. And I mean, it's like, how in the hell do I explain this to you guys? You are just like, I'm not going to hear it. I don't want to know it. This is absolutely insane. It couldn't have happened. Paul is like part of the canon. And who created the canon to begin with? It was a bunch of, Catholic bishops or whatever. And it was orchestrated through Constantine, who was, observed the what do you want to say? Sol Victus is like their sun god. And it was like, we're going to they overtook Europe for 2,000 years, for crying out loud. And there's, through the Catholic, what do you want to say? Vatican or whatever, they're still controlling the whole 9 yards. And Paul's teachings are completely 100% contradictory to Jesus. Now, I don't have to say anything more than that, other than you go look at your Bible, you look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and, whatever John has to say in his epistles, and Jude and Peter and whatever, and James, that they are not teaching what Paul taught. Paul teaches free grace.
No, he does not. No, he does not teach
yes,
that.
Yes, he does.
He has verses that are literally saying the dogs, the sorcerers, the homosexuals, the this and that, the adulterers, they're not going to go to the kingdom of heaven. Free grace people that take Paul's letters and ignore verses like that are just liars, because those verses are right there saying the words "you will not inherit the kingdom of heaven" is written in multiple of Paul's letters.
So why does Paul say that if you keep the 10 commandments and you are circumcision, it is nothing of you, and you keep the law, it's a curse to you? And Jesus says, if you keep the law, you will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. If you teach the law, you will be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And if you don't teach the law, you will be the least in the kingdom of heaven. So it's like, okay, Paul speaks out of both sides of his mouth. You're not listening, Ryan. You're just like, this is just like, oh, okay, it's going over my head. But I'm
Well,
not insulting you. I'm not trying to insult you.
okay, so how can you say Paul teaches free grace and also agree with the fact that he wrote this in Galatians 5:19 to 21 here? I warn you, as I warned you before in verse 21, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. How is that not blatantly opposed to free grace? The definition of free grace that we have in modern day Christian YouTube channels is everybody's saved. If you just believe in God, vaguely, everybody's saved. Paul's saying specifically people will not inherit the kingdom of God. That is not free grace, Nancy. You can't make the argument that Paul taught free grace. What you can say is people misinterpret his letters and teach free grace because of Paul's letters, because that's what happens. It's the same thing
All
as
right.
if somebody twisted the Old Testament or Jesus's words. We can't blame the actual author of the text because a person wants to pervert what that person wrote.
Okay, before I go on, I want to know exactly what do you believe personally about once saved, always saved, and free grace? Tell me what you think.
I don't believe anybody is once saved, always saved. I believe that we have a duty, and just like Paul says, you have to continue running the race until you die, which he also does say that too. You have to continue until you die, and we're only saved by grace, by God. We are not saved by our works, but our works are a fruit of being a servant of God, and God will acknowledge every little thing we did between sin or righteous action. So God,
I can't hear you. Okay, I guess I need to understand a couple, think about a couple other things that I need to ask about.
yeah, you're cutting out now, so maybe it was on your end. Because I don't think I was cutting out. I can't hear you right now, but it could be on my end. I don't know. Might be my end. Um, yeah, I can't hear you right now. I don't know
Oh,
if it's you.
I think I got something mixed up here. Anyhow, I don't know what to say to you because it's like, I know you love God. I know you want to go and fulfill everything that you have to do, but you have never heard about anything that has to do with the Sabbath day.
I keep
And
the Sabbath. What are you talking about?
um, I, I,
I
I
try
don't,
to honor the Sabbath. What do you mean?
I didn't know that. Okay, I'm sorry.
What do you mean? It's not like
Well,
it's not like
it,
we do a lot. Hold on. It's not like we do a lot of things. We don't buy things and we don't work or try to make people work. Those are the only real things that I don't do on the Sabbath. So I don't know what else you're doing besides that, but honestly, that's not too much. The only thing we're not really doing is eating out on the Sabbath. I mean, so we shouldn't boast in it like we're doing something awesome. But if I was going to a homeless shelter every Sabbath and giving out Bibles, then I would be really keeping the Sabbath holy. But at the moment right now, the way I supposedly keep the Sabbath is nothing special. So it's nothing for me to boast in. So I mean I have said it before, but I don't like scream it because I don't think it's a big deal if I don't buy things and I don't, work or make people work. There's not really many stipulations, on the Sabbath to keep the Sabbath. I mean, if you go in a strict, thou shalt not light a fire and those verses and you take them as you're not turning your lights on, that's some, Hasidic Jewish practices. There's people that'll interpret certain verses like, not kindling a fire in ways that I don't agree with. So, I mean, granted, I could just leave the lights on for the Sabbath. I don't think that's much of a obstacle either for people that are doing that. So to each his own. I could be doing a lot more every Sabbath to actually keep the Sabbath holy if I wanted to really say I keep the Sabbath. So I'm not even going to say I really keep the Sabbath like I should be keeping the Sabbath, I'll say.
Well, maybe that would bring me to another point. What do you believe about the Sabbath? Is it a day of is it something that's important, or do you just ignore it as it's not important?
Well, it's one of the 10 commandments, so I don't think we should be ignoring it, but we also should not make anyone stumble. So if someone believes that they're in Christ and Christ is their rest, then they can't we shouldn't argue with that, because Christ does say he's gonna give people your rest, and that his burden is light and his yoke is gentle, or maybe his burden's gentle and his yoke is light. I said that backwards, I think. But so Christ is the rest for the people of God. So if somebody wants to interpret that verse in that manner, and they have a specific job and they have to support their family, and they don't have a way to not work that day, and they work but they still love God, I'm not going to be their judge. God will be. But me personally, I think it's not a good thing to tell other people to not do it. I don't think you should go around telling people don't do it, because that doesn't seem very biblical. Jesus kept it, and the disciples kept it, but Jesus kept every aspect of the law. So I don't subscribe to the Mosaic law as far as the food laws or what to wear, or certain other aspects of the Mosaic law, the priestly laws, the Levitical laws. Obviously not doing sacrifices or any sort of incense offering, burnt offering.
So, so what would make you not want to keep any of the Mosaic laws?
Because Christ um, did away with some of them. He told us not to worry about food or clothing, because life is more than that. He said it's not what goes into your mouth that defiles, but what comes out your mouth. So I'm going to try to put weight into what God tells me is the law. Well, if God tells me the law in a spiritual sense doesn't include certain things, then I'm going to honor what God told me more than what the old covenant had as their laws, because those were laws for a specific group of people for specific reasons. A major reason they had the food laws, in my opinion, were because they didn't have the science to know what was healthy or what was not. So God was just basically protecting them from diseases and eating foods that were going to give them salmonella or whatever, could hurt them, if they didn't have refrigerators. So certain seafood and stuff could be very dangerous, so I don't think there was anything spiritually crazily significant about the food laws. And I don't wear fringes right now. I don't know if you do, but if somebody did choose to wear fringes that right now, that's fine. That's a good thing, probably. If they want to do it in the service of God, more power to them. But I don't feel like I'm held to having to wear fringes every day on all my clothing. There's just other aspects of the law that menstrual cycle stuff, I would still try to abide by that now that I'm more conscious of it. But back in the day, before I was a Christian, I've had interactions with girls on their period, and I never thought it was too bad. But now I would stay away from it because it's a law of God. So there's things that I think are more relevant than others. I don't think I would go to hell for having sex with a girl on her period, or sleeping in the same bed with her, or sitting in a chair that she sat in. I'd be unclean. But I don't know. I take what I think is still relevant to my life, and I whatever I think is a positive thing and makes sense, I do it. If I'm, for instance, the menstrual cycle thing with a girl, if I feel like it's something God would prefer me not to do, then I feel like it'd be somewhat rebellious to just do it because I think I can do it. But with food, I've heard Jesus speak on it out of his own mouth. I know a lot of people want to ignore that part of the New Testament and say, well, he was only talking about washing hands. But No, he was pretty clear. He said nothing that goes into your mouth defiles you. It's what comes out your mouth. And he also said in the chapter before in Matthew 6 that don't worry about food or clothing. God will provide for you. So he made some points, and also I know you won't accept him, but Paul wrote on food in his epistles. So there's more than one verse about food. So I have reasons for why I don't keep the dietary, but that's my choice. If you think you need to keep the dietary law and you don't want to eat shrimp and you think that helps you serve God, then do it, because that's you're doing it out of faith to God.
Okay, Ryan, you've said a lot right now. I need to go to sleep, and
I made you dizzy with all that. I got you dizzy.
I'll respond to you later about all of this, but I can't respond right now because I'm too busy.
I got a show tomorrow at 4 p.m., but it's just going to be me and the guests.
Is that Central Time?
Huh? You cut out. I can't hear you.
What time? What
4
time?
4 p.m. 4 p.m.
What time zone?
East Coast.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's just going to be me and him because he's, that's all he agreed to, and I don't want to put him on the spot and have a million people, bothering him. But and he's, a big time scholar, so I'm just glad he's coming on. So I'm trying to, cater to, what's best. But yeah, 4 p.m. tomorrow if you want to watch it. He's an expert in the Dead Sea Scrolls, so it should be a good show. Today actually, Monday. It's today now. It's not tomorrow now. It's 2:30, so today, 4 p.m.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good night. God bless.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah, guys. If you're interested, please watch the show this afternoon. I'm going to wrap up now, too, because I have the show at 4 p.m. today, and I don't want to wear my voice out while I'm up here by myself, just talking by myself. So 4 p.m., it's already scheduled on my channel. Dr. Kip Davis, he's an expert in the Dead Sea Scrolls. He used to be a Christian for 20 years of his life. And for whatever reason now he's become an atheist. So that's, where we're going to have the discussion on as far as why I believe in God, why he doesn't believe in God. But within that, we're going to get into the biblical text, how he views it. Maybe that's somewhat obviously why he may have lost his faith, because of things he may have found in the text may have affected his faith. So, I mean, that's a guarantee, I'm sure. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting interaction. It's just, good conversation we should have. Scholars with layman Christian like myself. But, he's a biblical expert. He does the Dead Sea Scrolls, translating. He's fluent in Hebrew. So we're going to learn some stuff, and he's got a really good channel that you guys should subscribe to. I mean, I've been watching it the last couple of days to prepare for the show today at 4 p.m. And, yeah, I've been learning a lot of stuff. So I would say subscribe to his channel. It's Kip Davis, Kipp. The name's right on the screen, and I've already put his channel's link in the description of the video for today too. So you could just go to the video today and go to the description, and I got a link to his channel. But yeah, I would say subscribe to his channel too, guys, because I've learned a lot of stuff already. I might not agree on everything he says, but I think, obviously it's good to weigh what he's saying for sure. So, anyways, thanks to everybody, Sherry, Eric, Nancy, Chris, Optium, whoever else was in the chat that I didn't see comment, or whoever else I missed. I apologize, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was just good fellowship, good conversation, and hopefully we can all continue to learn and help each other get closer to God while treating each other with respect and love. Joe too, Baldhead Joe, sorry. Yeah, so that's it, guys. I look forward to seeing y'all at 4 p.m. today. Please try to help me out so when he comes on, the channel doesn't have 0 viewers, and it at least looks somewhat, reputable for him to come on. And he knows it's not a big channel, but the more people watching, the better. I would like to at least have a decent, small little audience. He put the link in his chat to his Twitter and Facebook, so he'll bring people over also. So I'm sure he'll be more responsible for bringing people probably than me almost. So because he's got 10,000 subscribers. So, but yeah, if you guys, thanks Sherry. Yeah, if you guys can stop by at 4 p.m. and give it a watch, that'd be great. But I think you'll also find it interesting because he's a sharp guy, and I've been learning a lot watching him. And it's a rare thing that we're getting a scholar to come on the channel, so we gotta take advantage of it. But I'll try to represent the Christian side of the discussion as best I can, and God willing, he'll lead me to say some things that might make some sense. So thanks guys, and calling it a night. So take care of yourselves. God bless.